I never told my ex I was already pregnant when I said goodbye because he was leaving for his dream job across the country and smiling like nothing could touch him. I didn't want to be the anchor that pulled him back, so I let him go and raised a child who has his eyes and none of his name. This is something I've never said out loud. Not to my family. Not to my closest friend. And definitely not to him. But I think about it every single day. Especially when I look at my son. Back then, I lived with my boyfriend. We'd been together for almost 3 years. Let's call him Aaron. We moved in together during our last year of college in Pittsburgh. We both had big dreams, but his were louder. Bigger. He wanted to work in tech, build something that lasted, climb the ladder fast. He was always chasing the next thing. I was quieter. I liked the small stuff, making dinner, watering the plants on the windowsill, Saturday mornings with no plans. I wanted to teach one day. Maybe have a family. I never said it out loud, though. Not like he talked about Seattle. Seattle was always the dream for him. It started as a joke: if I ever make it big, I'm moving to Seattle. Then it became a goal. Then an obsession. He'd stay up until 2 a.m. working on code, researching companies, sending out resumes. I supported him. I was proud, honestly. He was smart, and when he talked about tech, he lit up in a way I didn't fully understand but admired. Then he got the job. I remember that day so clearly. He came home early, holding his phone like it was something holy. He didn't even sit down. He just said, "They offered it. I'm going. I'm really going." I hugged him. Smiled. Said you did it, like I meant it. And part of me did. But I'd taken the test that morning. 2 lines. No mistake. I was pregnant. 6 weeks, maybe closer to 7. I had stared at that little stick in the bathroom for nearly 30 minutes before I moved. It felt like the walls were closing in. And I didn't tell him. Not then. Not even after dinner. I kept thinking, wait until tomorrow. Wait until it doesn't feel like you're stealing something from him. The next few days, he was buzzing. Planning. Talking fast. He showed me pictures of apartments, weather forecasts, the company website. He asked me if I'd visit. Said things like, maybe you can move out later if you want. But it felt like he was already halfway gone. He left in 4 days. I had 4 days to say something. I didn't. I kept making him meals. Helping him pack. Laughing at the same old jokes. He never noticed how often I sat down. How quiet I got. He never noticed I stopped drinking coffee. When I finally drove him to the airport, I thought, tell him. Now. This is it. We parked. Got out. The air smelled like exhaust and fast food. I stood by the trunk as he pulled his suitcase out. He turned and looked at me, eyes full of light. He said, I don't know how to say goodbye to you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fall to my knees and say, you don't have to. Stay. Or take me with you. Or at least know what you're leaving behind. But I didn't. I said, just go. Just don't look back. He hugged me. Kissed my cheek. Said, I'll call when I land. I nodded. He walked away. And I stood there, one hand on my stomach, the other gripping the car door like it was the only thing keeping me upright. He called. I didn't answer. I moved out 2 weeks later. Gave up the lease. Boxed up the memories. I didn't even tell my mom until I started showing. She was supportive, in that stunned, tight-lipped way moms get when they're scared for you. The pregnancy was lonely. I didn't post anything. I didn't make an announcement. I told people I'd broken up with Aaron because he had a new job across the country and we wanted different things. Nobody asked too many questions. When my son was born, I cried harder than I ever had. He looked just like Aaron. It hit me like a punch in the chest. Same eyes. Same shape of the mouth. Same look when he slept, like the whole world was soft and far away. I named him Caleb. Not after anyone. Just because it felt right. Aaron never knew. I never told him. He moved on. Got married 2 years ago. I saw the pictures online, a beach wedding, everyone barefoot, white linen shirts, wide smiles. His new wife is tall, clean-cut, like someone from a magazine ad. They don't have kids, at least not yet. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I just reached out. Sent a picture. Said, "This is your son." But I never do. Because he left like the world was finally giving him something he deserved. And I didn't want to be the person who took it away. So I let him go. And now I raise a boy who has his eyes and none of his name. Caleb was 5 when he first asked about his dad. It was a Tuesday. I remember because we had grilled cheese and soup, and he always dipped the sandwich in the soup like it was a game. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring. Out of nowhere, he looked up and said, "Do I have a dad?" I froze. Not because I didn't know it would come, I did. I just thought I'd be more prepared when it did. But how do you explain that kind of truth to a 5-year-old? I sat down next to him. I said, "Yes, you do. He lives far away." He thought about it for a second, then went back to coloring. That was it. That was all he wanted to know. But it sat heavy in me for weeks. After that, he brought it up sometimes, little things. Is my dad tall like me? Or, did he like pizza? I answered gently, carefully. I never lied, but I didn't tell the whole truth either. I didn't tell him that his dad never knew he existed. That summer, I found out Aaron was back in Pittsburgh for a tech conference. Just a 2-day thing. I saw a post from a mutual friend. There was a photo, him standing at a podium, talking to a crowd, hand in his pocket, like always. I stared at that picture for almost an hour. And something in me shifted. For the first time, I got angry. Not at him, really. At myself. For carrying this thing alone. For letting him walk away clean while I stayed behind and built a life from scratch. For acting like that was the noble thing to do. So I drove to the hotel. I didn't bring Caleb. I didn't even bring a picture. I just needed to see him. I walked through the lobby like I had a purpose, pretending not to shake. I asked the front desk if they had a tech conference going on, they did. I asked which ballroom. The woman pointed. I walked to the doors, looked through the glass. He was standing up front, answering a question. His hair was a little thinner. His face older. But the way he moved, the way he smiled, it was like no time had passed. And then he looked right at me. Not at me like he recognized me. Just, past me. Through me. He didn't know me anymore. I left before the session ended. I didn't cry until I got back in the car. Later that night, I got a message from him. Just one line. "Hey. Was that you at the Sheraton today?" I stared at the screen, heart racing. I didn't know what to say. I typed out 10 versions of the truth. Then I deleted them all. I never answered. 2 days later, he flew back to Seattle. A week after that, I found out from a coworker that Aaron's company was opening an East Coast branch. In Pittsburgh. They were looking for schools for his stepdaughter. And suddenly, I realized something I hadn't prepared for: he might be coming back. And he still didn't know about Caleb. 2 months later, I saw him again, not online, not in passing, but in person. It was a Saturday morning at the farmer's market near my apartment. Caleb was with me, holding my hand, asking if we could get kettle corn like we always did. We were standing near the honey booth when I heard a voice behind me, deep, familiar, casual. "Excuse me," I turned around. It was him. Aaron. He blinked, looked right at me, and this time, he did recognize me. I could see it in the way his mouth opened, then closed, like he didn't expect to find words. "Wow," he said. I didn't know you still lived around here." I nodded, my pulse loud in my ears. Caleb was standing right next to me, quiet now, holding my wrist. I felt his grip tighten. "I do," I said. "We do." He looked down at Caleb. Smiled. "Hey, buddy." Caleb didn't answer. He leaned into me a little. Aaron looked back at me. "Is he?" I panicked. My brain raced. I said, "This is my son, Caleb. Not our son. Just mine." Aaron nodded slowly. He didn't press. Just smiled and said, "Nice to meet you, Caleb." Caleb said nothing. Aaron told me he'd moved back a few weeks ago, part-time for now, full-time in the fall. His wife and stepdaughter were still out west, but they were coming after school let out. He asked how I'd been, said he was surprised I hadn't replied to his message. I lied. Said I hadn't seen it. Said I was just busy. He nodded again, eyes lingering on Caleb like something was clicking, but he wasn't ready to ask. Then he handed me a business card. "If you ever want to catch up, for real, let me know." He walked off after that. I stood there frozen. Caleb tugged my hand and said, "Mom, who was that?" And I said, "Just someone I used to know." I thought that would be the end of it. But 2 weeks later, I got an email. From his wife. I don't even know how she found me. Maybe the mutual friends, maybe he mentioned something. But it was short and polite. She said she'd heard we ran into each other and that she was looking forward to meeting more people in the area. Then she wrote, "Also, Aaron mentioned you have a son. Caleb, right? He's such a beautiful boy. Same eyes." Smiley face, that little smiley face made my stomach turn. Like she knew. Like he knew. I didn't reply. But I knew something had changed. He was curious now. Maybe suspicious. Maybe trying to do the math in his head. Caleb was 7. We broke up 8 years ago. It wouldn't be hard. A week later, I got a knock on my door. And it wasn't Aaron. It was his wife. She stood there holding a coffee, too cheerful, too calm. She asked if she could come in. She didn't wait for my answer. She stepped inside like she owned the place. Like we were friends. Like I hadn't just spent 7 years building a wall she was now walking straight through. "I hope this isn't weird," she said, looking around my living room. "I was just in the neighborhood, figured I'd say hi in person." I didn't answer. I watched her take it all in, the Legos on the coffee table, the backpack by the door, the picture frames on the wall. Caleb wasn't home. Thank God. He was at a friend's birthday party. She set the coffee on the counter and turned to me. He looked so much like Aaron. There it was. No small talk. No pretending. I stayed quiet. My chest felt tight. She walked over to the photo shelf. Picked up the one of Caleb in his kindergarten graduation gown. "I showed Aaron this one," she said. He didn't know how to react. I looked at her. Her face was unreadable. Not angry. Not warm. Just measured. "I wasn't trying to hurt him," I said. She looked up. "But you did." That hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. I thought I'd feel defensive. But mostly I just felt tired. "He was leaving," I said. "And I didn't want to be the reason he stayed out of guilt." She nodded slowly. "You know what's strange," she said. "He always talked about you like a memory. Like something soft and unfinished. I think part of him never really let go." I didn't respond. Then she said, "He wants to meet him." The words landed hard. Not like a threat. More like a crack in the ice that had kept everything frozen for years. I looked away. My throat burned. He had a right to know, she added, softer now. And maybe he did. Maybe he still does. But there was something in her tone I didn't trust. A kind of control. Like she wanted to manage the story, not understand it. I finally said, "What does Aaron want from him?" "From us?" She shrugged. "I think he just wants to see him. Just once. Maybe that's all. Maybe more." I nodded slowly, but inside, I was spiraling. Because how do you explain to a 7-year-old that the man who shows up one day isn't just some guy, he's the reason you exist? How do you protect him from a father who might only be curious? Or worse, from one who might want more than curiosity? She left after that. Gave me her number. Told me to think about it. I sat at the kitchen table for hours after the door closed. The photo of Caleb still on the shelf. His eyes smiling back at me, Aaron's eyes, always. And I realized something terrifying: no matter what I decide, the truth is already out. And the past I kept buried is about to come crashing into the life I built from scratch. He came by last week, just stood at the edge of the driveway while Caleb played with chalk on the sidewalk, not knowing who he was. We made eye contact, and for a second, I thought he'd walk away. But he didn't. He smiled at Caleb, then looked at me like I owed him something. And maybe I do. But all I could think was, he got to chase every dream he had while I stayed here building a life out of what he left behind. So no, I didn't invite him in. I didn't explain anything. I just stood there, still, and let him see what it looks like when someone learns to live without you.